Well, leadership contentions are coming from left and right at Parliament House in Canberra this week. You'll hear shortly from Queensland Senator Matt Canavan, who's challenging the current Nationals leader David Littleproud at the Nats party room meeting today. Meanwhile, the Liberals and Greens are also set to choose their new leaders later this week. I'm joined by former Liberal MP and former New South Wales President of the Liberal Party, Jason Falinski. Jason Falinski, welcome back to Breakfast.
Thanks for having me, Sally. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price has announced that she'll run for the deputy leadership on a ticket with former Shadow Treasurer Angus Taylor. What do you think about that combination?
Oh, look, I think it's got all sorts of interesting prospects about it. They've got to make their case to the party room. I think what I'm more focused on is what that means for Australian politics and particularly for the Liberal Party in terms of advancing our philosophy and our views for the Australian people so that they can understand what it is that we stand for and hopefully become a party that they want to vote for and support.
The strengthening of the Liberal Party, will that come from moving more towards the centre or more towards the right?
I don't think Australians think along that sort of ideological spectrum. Australians want to know, do you have a political party or you've got policies and philosophies that are going to move my life up or down? I don't think we need to focus on left or right. What we need to focus on is helping Australians get ahead. And when we start doing that and talking to Australians about that, we'll see our votes start to go up as well.
What about on other issues? The term culture wars has been thrown around and also on social issues as well. Is it better to have policies that reflect the views of the middle of Australia or further to the right?
Well, so I'm a very strong believer that when the Liberal Party is framing its policies in terms of the so-called culture wars, we're losing votes. We're splintering our electoral coalition. When we are framing issues in terms of economic policy, we're bringing our electoral coalition together. The whole point of liberalism is to disempower government and to empower individuals. You can't say that we want government out of the boardroom just so we can put it in the bedroom. We need to get government out of both rooms.
Susan Lee is running for the Liberal Party leadership. Is she a better choice in your view than Angus Taylor?
Look, she has certain. She certainly brings a lot of positive attributes to this contest, as does Angus. Don't get me wrong, and they would have different leadership styles. But so I go back to what I said to you earlier and what we were talking about, which is whoever is the leader needs to stop talking to us about us and go out there more united than ever before and tell people that we have the values and visions that can make their lives better.
You've written a column in the Financial Review arguing that Tim Wilson should be Liberal leader after his expected re-election in Goldstein. Why?
Because I think that Tim is a fighter, and I think that our supporters, any supporters of any political party after the loss that we've just had, want someone who's going to fight, who's actually going to stand there and say, I believe in these things and I will fight for these things. I think Tim embodies those characteristics more so than anyone else in the parliamentary party. But it's not really a paean to Tim Wilson. It's about whoever the next leader is has to embody that fighting spirit if we're going to get ahead.
Was that fighting spirit lacking at some times during the election campaign?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's been lacking for a long time, if I'm being brutally honest about it. We have too often not been, and I've got to say, when I was a member of Parliament, too often I compromised on core beliefs of what liberalism is, and sometimes it's not popular, but it's necessary. And we also have to start practicing telling truth to power as well, which is, in a democracy, is the people.
You're listening to Radio National Breakfast and you're hearing from a former New South Wales President of the Liberal Party and former MP, Jason Falinski. You've also commented in the past week that more affordable housing could mean reducing house prices. Was the coalition wrong to say during the election campaign that they wanted house prices to steadily increase rather than decrease?
Yes, they were. You can't have housing affordability unless prices are reducing. And the fact is that we have to make a choice. And this is Sally, this is actually at the core of telling truth to power, which is if we believe that young Australians should have access to housing, should be able to buy their own home, then it means that people who currently own homes need to understand that the price will either stay the same or go lower. And that's important, I think, if we're going to be honest with people. If, on the other hand, you say, well, I don't want house prices to go lower, then you have to be honest and say to young Australians, we don't believe that you should ever own your own home. Now, in that argument, I'm on the side of housing affordability and reducing prices.
Would that lose you votes for those who already own property?
Well, I would say to people who already own property, if you're sitting on a $1 million increase in your home, you can't eat that, you can't spend that, you can't use that. It is just something that makes you feel better. It's not actually
but you
something
can pass
that has
it on
any
to your
utility.
family. You can, when you change, perhaps you're downsizing later.
Yes,
that's going to
when
leave
you
you with a lot
die.
more money in your bank.
Yeah, when you die. That's right. It's not doing anything
Well, people
useful
downsize
for
a
you
long
right
time
now.
before that, don't they?
Yeah, sure. And that also goes to wealth inequality as well. So when you look at wealth inequality across the Western world, it is usually tied to property ownership, and that has been the result of restricting supply. There's a great book out in the US written by two left-wing progressive journalists, Ezra Klein is one, called Abundance. And he makes the point that the argument that you're relaying, that other people espouse, is the argument that exists in California. California has a lack of affordable housing, has very high homelessness, has lack of opportunity, and you have people who are not getting access to the same sort of economic opportunities that generations who came before them had. Whereas in places like Texas, that has a much more streamlined planning system where supply can come onto the market, you have more affordable housing, you have very little homelessness, and you have a community that is more united and gets on with the job, and there's more economic abundance. And they're the questions that people have to ask themselves.
Let's talk about the coalition. Have the Nationals been driving policy in the coalition and performing better? Is that part of the Liberals' problem, that they've fallen behind in that respect?
Yeah, I think so. I think that the National Party have been far better at advocating for their people. Look, one of the problems is that the leader of the Liberal Party is actually the leader of the coalition, whereas the leader of the National Party is the leader of the National Party. We have to get better at advocating for those people who we represent, or at least as good at advocating for them as the National Party has been advocating for their people.
In trying to win back key voting demographics, should the Liberal Party have gender quotas to make it more representative of what the country looks like?
Well, I think that we need... Well, I actually looked at this very long and hard, and I looked at other political parties around the world. The most successful party around the world at creating a diverse and inclusive parliamentary party was the Conservative Party in the in the United Kingdom, who is now, of course, led by a black woman. And the key to that was actually the list system, which David Cameron used to get more people into the party, not just from different ethnic groups, but also from different trades and professions, etc. And he massively diversified the party into what is probably now one of the most diverse political parties in Western Europe. I think that's the system that we should look at. It doesn't rely on quotas, but it does rely on having proactive pieces of work. The thing I would also point out to a lot of people is that we actually pre-selected a lot of female candidates for the last election. We just failed to get them elected, and there is that piece of work we need to work on as well.
Jason Falinski, we've run out of time. Thanks so much for your time this morning.
It's been great. Thanks, Sally. Bye.
That's Jason Falinski there, former Liberal MP and former president of the Liberal Party in New South Wales.
You're listening to ABC Radio National. On air, online and on the ABC Listen app.